do you struggle to take the initiative in your chess games? Or maybe it's the case that you find it difficult to make the most of the initiative when you do have it. If so, then this training video, a bit shorter than some of my other ones, is going to be quite valuable for you. In fact, this example I'm sharing with you here is one that actually comes from an article I was reading just recently on chess.com about the recent Coach of the Month, Novak Savaparka, a young Serbian I am, and he shared this as one of his favorite teaching examples. And I agree, I think it's a very instructive position. This is from the game between Alatortsev against Boleslavsky, and I'll take the opportunity to share some of the key lessons from this game with you in terms of how to take the initiative and how to make the most of it. And by the way, if you do enjoy my style of training in this lesson and you would like to potentially, work with me, with some live coaching sessions, then I would recommend checking out my link in the description below to my most recent offer at a price point that should be affordable for the majority of you who are watching this training. Of course, if you want to just continue enjoying my free content, that's perfectly fine as well. But yeah, let's see how the game played. Actually, before we see how the game played, let me ask you this. What's the move that you would play in this position as black? What would you play if you had this in a game? You might want to let me know in the comments down below, where in this way we'll be able to see, who got the puzzle right, and not just who got it right, but kind of who saw the deepest in terms of how the position might play out. Because if you somehow see the whole game sequence already from this position, well, that'd be quite impressive even for a grandmaster, probably. So basically, if we use the strategic chess roadmap, this is something that I was actually covering in a live training just earlier today in my free Facebook group, Adult Chess Improvers. If you want to catch a replay of that, by the way, I'll share a link in the description for you to be able to do that. But basically, in that, I sort of made the point that, in the sort of way to kind of assess the position is sort of to look at the pawn structure to begin with, if white is able to complete its development. And then it's true that with black having one less pawn around the king, that, black's king will be a bit more open and, this could long-term be a little bit of an issue. Not to mention that, maybe it's not so easy for black to move his pawn majority forward until the endgame. But yeah, also, if we kind of look at the pieces, we can also say that because it's mostly major pieces on the board, that, for example, if white can develop and play down the e-file and trade down the light squared bishops, well, the minor pieces make better defenders, and the major pieces generally make better attackers. So, if white can, say, get a rook in at e7, or, like, h4, h5 in the middle game to attack our king, well, then the weaker black king will leave black with some problems in a certain sense. So what this means is that this is a position where, if things go very long-term, the position will start to become quite pleasant for white, if black doesn't create some sort of counterplay. And yeah, well done if you, looked at some forcing moves and came to the conclusion that the move Queen G5 is going to be the way to play. Because with Queen G5, we're asking this question of black, of how he is going to, defend the pawn on G2, as it were. Whereas I'm using chess base, I already forgot how to draw the arrows. But yeah, we got there in the end. Because I'm not used to doing it on lead chess, so you might notice I'm using a different board this time for this one. Now the first point to note, and this is kind of testing your tactical vision a bit, you might have just thought that it's nothing because of castles and, bishop e2, they just block, and, bishop h3. You might have thought that, white can just play bishop f3 and defend the pawn. But the pawn is pinned to the king, so we can just take the bishop and just win, basically. And of course, if white plays g3, we can simply take the rook. So that's why castling isn't really an option. If you ask the computer, it will tell you that king f1 is the best move, but of course when the king is right on the file for the attack, and also, say when we're playing with like queen h4 and just leave the white rook completely out of the game, it's clear that this is just a very nice position for black and not one that really requires a deeper sort of calculation. But what about if they played g3, as Alatortsev did in this game here? Well, what would be the move that you would play as black in this case? And this one, yeah, you might want to think about a little bit if you need a bit more time. To figure out what you would play, you can always pause the video and then come back when you've made your decision. So basically here it's a little bit of an example of the calculation technique of the comparison method. And then what we're basically comparing is, what's going to be more effective, playing rook a8 and bring the final piece into play, or playing the move bishop h3 to stop white from castling short. Because, if you think about, if white had the move here, they probably would just castle short, most likely. But then a question to ask can also be, well, in that case, do we have a good sort of follow-up, or is white simply consolidating? Now, if you do play a move like bishop h3, what's going to happen is that white can now play this move of f4. And once that queen moves out of the way, like queen a5, queen d2 allows you to, fend off the attack with the queen. And, of course, the ending would be quite fine for white. And, otherwise white will be able to castle long, most likely. Or if black does try to stop with queen a3, you kind of go king f2 and, basically able to hold in this way. Like rook e8, rook d1, and queen c5, queen d4. Allows white to use the constant idea of trading queens to defend himself and hold his own here. And, given time, white also can, get the final piece into the game with rook e1 and king g1. So, this is to say, the bishop a3 just isn't quite as effective. The fact also that white can castle long also sort of takes the sting out of black's initiative. So, it's saying with the initiative, it's a very fleeting kind of advantage. It's very easy maybe to just sort of find you do have it, but it only takes one imprecise move and that initiative can simply be gone because of its, very temporal nature. So the move here is rook a8. We're using the principle, from soccer or football of making sure that all of the players are out on the field. After castles in the game, black played the move of bishop to h3, attacking the rook and still using that weakness. Now, in the game, white played the move of f4, which we'll get to in a moment, but just to kind of test your tactical vision, what would you play here if white plays rook fe1 at this point? Because it might seem like white is just defending everything very comfortably, like, the bishop's well defended and, the king seems reasonably safe for the moment. But it turns out that it's all an illusion. And, it's always worth asking, can we play the impossible move? And it turns out we can. We can play rook takes f2 and just win a free pawn. Because if they take, then queen e3 is checkmate. And it's your ability to see these kind of little tricks that's really going to dictate the quality of your play and a success as a player. Because it's these little tricks that allow us to execute the ideal strategies that we want to make work. Now, when they play the move f4, this is still going to be a little bit tricky. There are still some good moves that black needs to find here to fully prosecute his advantage. And it is definitely a very beautiful sequence from this game. Now, let's say if you play a normal move like moving the queen away, like queen c5, rook f2, and, it turns out that, you can invade with moves like rook e3, for example, but, white is also reasonably solid, like you can play b4, you can, bring the bishop to the defense with bishop f3 or bishop f1, and it's not really going to be that much for black. Like, the e-file looks nice, but it's hard to really turn into something more tangible in a sense. Whereas in the game, we see black really leverage his initiative in the best way possible. And certainly white, I think, will make a strong impression on you. And like the principal players sort of realizing that, when we're sort of like attacking, if we give the opponent time to consolidate, then our initiative will disappear. So in an ideal world, we'll find a way to basically keep up the flow of threats so the opponent is not able to consolidate. And the way that Boleslavsky did it here was with the move of bishop takes f1. Certainly the most beautiful move of the game, where we sacrifice the queen. But on the other hand, white has a lot of problems with the king safety. For example, if queen to d4, we can even go bishop to h3, and it's actually really hard for white to get out of the idea of just playing like the rook to f2 and just giving checkmate with rook f1. In this case, we can see that our rook and bishop are actually better than the white queen quite instructively. Also, if they do play a move like queen h4, you even have some little tricks like rook takes a2, where you just basically, using the fact they can't take the rook because of the back rank mate, but, if they do play rook c1, you can then get in with, like, rook g2 and, playing, like, even rook c2 and, it's kind of like running rings around the rook, like, just constantly hitting with this tactic, where if they do play a move like rook e1, you're able to get in with bishop g2, bishop c6, and, like, they just can't really stop rook g2 and, the sort of Milmeth format in a good way. Like if you go queen h3, even just rook f5, and you can sort of see how dominated the white queen is here. Like flicking in g4 doesn't really help, but it's sort of hard to know what else you do because your piece is just so tied up, stopping your king from getting mated one way or the other. So just this very instructive example is kind of domination of the pieces that we see here. And there's definitely a position you might like to play out against a computer in your own time, just to make sure you kind of understand why black is winning and just to make sure that you can win it. Now, in the game, white played the move queen to c3. And here, the most precise move is probably the move bishop g2 that was played in the game. I mean, bishop h3 is certainly fine as well, but you do allow white to... I know the idea of bishop h3 is to go rook g2 and just line up the rook f1 for the back rank mate. But it is true, you do allow white to play g4 and at least try to make things a little bit messy in this position. Whereas the move of bishop g2 is a little bit more reliable, where just the threat of going like bishop c6 and going for the mill is just really tough to deal with. After queen to d3, black has to find one more precise move and then it all just fits together like a glove. Where this one, by the way, if you do want to spend some time to pause and try and figure out the answer, that is likely to be quite good for your chess. So the one winning move for black here is to play the move bishop to f3, setting up this very strong threat of rook to g2. Yeah, if we count the material, white is up a queen for a rook and a bishop, but the rook and the bishop are really coordinating very well here, and the fact the white king is so exposed is sort of sealing his fate. In fact, if you ask the computer, it will already tell you the best move is queen e2, which of course is just leaving black a piece up for absolutely nothing. In the game, white played rook f1, but yeah, rook g2, king h1, and okay, it turns out that here we do want to be a little bit precise. Like if we do rush with rook g3, I mean this position after rook f3 is not like a not like a forced win. Let's say white does still have some chances to save the game with his active queen. But by playing this final coup de grace of bishop c6, that allows us to set up this decisive battery and a good example of not rushing, but just keeping the domination. And wherever the queen goes, we are going to have a discovered attack to pick up the queen. So if queen f1 check, we have the rook f2 counter check. We take the queen and we just win the game as it happened in the game continuation. So yeah, this was a very instructive example, and like I said, it wasn't, the one I just got like from my own inspiration, but I did pick it up from a fellow, chess.com coach of the month. Because like I was the very first chess.com coach of the month back in, I think it was April 2019, and yeah, it's cool to see other coaches continuing to serve the chess audience, as it were. But yeah, if you did enjoy this training, do make sure to leave a like and also to consider subscribing. And yeah, let me know in the comments below, like, what sort of content do you prefer? Like, do you prefer these kind of shorter videos where you just take an instructive puzzle and just kind of deep dive into it? Or do you prefer, like, the recaps where I sort of cover a lot of games in the tournament? Or do you prefer, like, the sort of longer trainings where I just show a lot of games which really help you to fully master a particular theme? Do let me know that. Also, with some subsequent videos, you are going to see me with doing some more recaps and also sharing kind of like some opening videos as well. It'll be like an interesting mix of content. You also will include some stuff on things like middle game planning, some games I've played, and also also kind of like things like converting an advantage and some other challenges I know you guys face in your games. So it's going to be a bit of a mix where it might take a bit of time for some of these themes to come up because I just have so many things I want to share, and only, let's say, so many you can sort of fit into a content schedule. But yeah, I think that you guys are gonna get a lot out of it in any case. So yeah, congrats on making it to the end of the training, and yeah, I will see you in the next training. Until then, take care.